So to get access to the spot where you can apply power to open up the front latch so you can get access to the battery on the right hand side, or certainly it is in this car which is right hand drive, it may be on the left hand side for a left hand drive car, but remove the fuse holder, and it's this red thing here that you actually want to pull out. So just put that over the top of it and pull it out. You pull it out about a centimetre or so, and there are contacts on either side of it, and what you're going to do is get a red jumper lead, put that, don't have it connected to the battery just yet, and then you can connect that, and then you're going to connect the negative to an earth part of the chassis. I'd put it on the latch for the door. Then we're going to connect our battery to open up the front latch. Now once you've connected the positive jumper lead to that spot, spot on the fuse panel there, I've just connected the negative here just to the latch on the door. Then I'm going to connect up the battery. Now when you connect this, looking at the wiring diagram, it looks as though that spot there is just a way to hot wire the front body control module, so it won't go to anything else. It's not a way to recharge the battery or anything like that. It's only a way to get the body control module in the front cranked up so it can then open the front latch. So you don't need the key in or anything like that. It's just going to be hot the moment you apply power to it. Negative to negative first, then we connect the positive there. I'm not sure if you can hear that I pull that up and immediately I can hear that latch working at the front. So that is the way you would open the front latch, and then once you've done that, you'll have access to the battery compartment to recharge it or replace the battery as required. To remove the battery, and this may be slightly different layout to a left-hand drive car, this is a right-hand drive car, but I think it's essentially the same. Remove the cover from here and just take that away. Next thing you want to do, there are two Torx, T27 Torx screws that are going to come here. This is the air compressor. You want to remove that. There's actually a fan there as well, so just remove those two Torx screws. You're going to move the fan out of the way, and the compressor you just grab hold of and pull that up. There are some clips. There are 3 lugs there that actually have clips on them that attach to the tray down the bottom. Sometimes the clips actually come up and they're just going to stay attached to that. You just pull those off and just put them back on the tray, just push them into place. It's pretty obvious where they need to go. Once I've done that, before I really start working on anything here, I'm going to disconnect the battery terminals. What's really important here is when you are disconnecting, disconnect the negative first and put it away to the side, and then disconnect the positive. And the reason for that is while ever that negative is connected, basically the negative terminal is the entire chassis of the car. As soon as you disconnect that, the chassis is no longer live. So the problem if that is connected is that if I start to work on the positive terminal and with my wrench or whatever and I touch the chassis, it's going to arc, which is bad, and who knows what's going to happen to the electronics of the car. So you want to avoid that at all costs. Conversely, when you're putting everything back together, we do not want to have the negative terminal live whilst we are working on the positive terminal, so I need to make sure that I put the positive terminal on first, connect that with the wrench and make sure that's all tight, and then connect the negative terminal. So I'll disconnect the negative first. Pull that out of the way, and now I can disconnect the positive terminal. And that's how I mean, if I just wanted to disconnect the battery, all I need to do is just disconnect the negative terminal, but because I'm now going to remove the battery out of the car, obviously I need to disconnect both. The last thing I need to do is remove this strap. Now this strap doesn't actually, it's just a safety thing. The actual battery itself is bolted down on the left hand side, and we'll have a look at this at the moment. But this strap is just a safety thing, I guess, and it's actually not touching the top at all. But we need to remove that. There are 13mm nuts that need to come off. When you're pulling this back one off, make sure you grab hold of the thing, because it would be easy to fall down over the fuel tank. and once those are off, that just pulls forward and out. To actually get the battery out, it's this lug here, so this screw which is holding in this bracket, which is going to hold everything in. Now I'm not sure if it's obvious or not. I'll move that negative terminal out of the way, but the tray is actually quite large. This battery is the original battery, but it's actually slightly shorter than the one if you actually look up online of what the spec actually is. Funny thing. The spec on the normal battery is about 315 mil wide. This one's about 270, and it'll actually take, the tray will actually take up to about a 350 mil wide battery. The width in this direction, I think it's about 175 mil, and high about 190. But as long as you get the depth and the height right, you can actually have 3 different battery sizes. A lot of people talk about how important it is to get exactly the right battery, and to be perfectly honest, I don't think that's true at all. I've actually pulled out other batteries out of other cars that are not this type of battery. They're just a standard, bog standard lead acid battery, and the thing works perfectly fine. So, and you don't have to code it or anything like that because there's no electronics in the battery. It's just the positive and negative terminal and 12 volts of power that's coming out of it. So don't be too phased about that. I'll remove the lug or the bracket, actually remove it out. And so that's the bracket there. That bit there, there's a protrusion at the bottom of the battery, which is going to be what gets held underneath that, and then this bit here holds around the side of it so the thing can't move. And so there are actually 3 different screw holes, so it could either be there for the most narrow battery, or in that position there, or all the way out to there, which would take that much larger battery. So the specifics of the battery, width is actually not particularly important, but that dimension and height is. You could actually probably put a little bit higher battery, taller battery in it, as long as the terminals are recessed like this, which most European batteries are, or European car style batteries are. But other than that, the specifics of the battery, as long as you get the cold cranking amps and the capacity, then you're pretty much going to be good to go. Now for these cars, they've got an AGM battery, which is an absorbed glass mat battery, which is like the highest quality and good for stop start, which is what they recommend. For this car, I've actually turned off the stop start, so it never activates. So to be frank, I couldn't care less what sort of battery goes into it. A bog standard battery that you've been using on any other car for years, I reckon would be perfectly okay. The reason I sort of went to some effort of pulling this out, I had a funny glitch with the car where it just drained the battery overnight, had to recharge it. I thought the battery was toast. In fact, it's perfectly okay after I recharged it. So I just put another battery from another car, which doesn't have an AGM battery in it, and it worked perfectly fine, no problems at all. So yeah, I guess you can do what you like, but I would be perfectly happy using a standard battery in the car. So when we're putting everything back in, it's just the reverse. So it's something to be careful of when you're pulling this thing out. Don't do your back in. This is heavy and you've got to really lean over. You'll need to stand in the front, or the recess at the front of the car. I actually have MDF in the bottom of that, so I don't bend the bottom of it because it would actually be pretty easy to bend. But other than that, just be careful as you're pulling that thing out. Once you reconnect the battery, then there's just a few things that you need to do. Now, most of these on my car I don't have to do, and I'm not sure if it's because of an earlier model, but on the 2013 workshop manual, these are the things that it tells you to do. The first one is the Dme Adaptations. So they say to put the ignition on, turn it on without starting the engine, leave it on for 30 seconds, don't actuate the accelerator pedal, then turn it off, and that's going to do the Dme adaptation. The next one is the tyre pressure monitoring system. My car doesn't have that, but they say just take it for a drive, and initially it won't show you any indications, and then after a while, soon afterwards, it will actually give you the indications. The next one is the steering angle sensor. It says you're going to put the ignition, go on, off, and then back on again. And then it says turn the wheels to, or this is from the wheels in the straight ahead position, so switch the ignition off and on again twice. Then it says start the engine, and then from the straight ahead position, turn the steering wheel to the right approximately 20 degrees. So you're going to turn it a little bit to the right. And then they say drive it straight ahead for at least 1 second at a speed above 4 kilometers per hour. And that's for the steering angle sensor. Now, I've never had to do that. When I first started to disconnect the battery, I did that, but then forgot afterwards when I disconnected later. And I had no error codes or anything like that. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. But if you do have steering angle problems there, or the sensor problems, then that may be the solution. The one thing I definitely have to do though is the windows. So when I turn the ignition on, you see now after it's had the battery disconnected, if the auto, that is working. How funny is that? I don't know why that is. Normally that doesn't work. So what you will need to do is actually have to manually motor it all the way down, okay, and then press it again down when it gets up to the bottom position. Then pull it all the way up until it stops, and then pull it up again, okay, and now it's good to go, and the auto functionality will work. That's really odd. Maybe it's because I only had the battery disconnected for a few moments, but normally the auto functionality won't work, and you'll need to recalibrate where fully up and fully down is. Let's see if the other one works. Yep, it is working fine, so that's a bit weird. The last thing that it talks about in the books, which I don't have to do normally, but the steering wheel adjustment, they just say move it up, down, forward, aft once, and then that's all sorted, and you should be good to go.